Okay, so very good morning, good afternoon, and very good evening to all you wonderful students and trainees over here. First of all, let me begin by giving you all an advance wishes for Christmas, wishing you all a Merry Christmas. I'm putting everybody onto the gallery mode so you can wish one another a very,
Thank
very Merry Christmas. May
Thank
God
you, ma'am.
bless you and
you. Wish you the
to be
same.
blessed with
Wish
abundance
you the
and
same, ma'am.
prosperity. Yes, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you, ma'am. Wish you the same, ma'am.
Thank you.
On this happy note, on the holiday season, we get started with our Montessori math practical. Simultaneously, we can definitely work on the album and the artwork as well so that, we do not get lagged on. Okay. So towards the side of me, you would definitely find some of the materials. So these are very simple ones that we would be able to work with our children of ages, say 3 to 6 years of age. But whenever you consider math is all around, right from the childhood. Yes, right from day one. We always start with what day is your baby born? Date is math. What was the time that the baby was born? Time is again math. What was the weight of the child? What was the weight of the mother? Right? What was the circumference of the head when the baby was born? How tall was the child? Right? Inches, height, what is the height of the child? So everything, right from the very young age, right from day one, as after your baby is born, math was all around. Once the child starts growing, we definitely keep asking a little bit more. How many months is your baby now? 2 months, 3 months, 5 months. So months. How many years are they? And slowly you can ask children also. And what if they are stepping into the school? We can always ask which school you go to. What time does your school start? 8:45, 9 o'clock. How do you go to school? How far is it? Don't we relate to our day-to-day conversations? So anything and everything that we work in our day-to-day life sometimes is connected to our math itself. So numbers itself, they cannot be defined all alone. We need to understand how the number system actually works and how are these being connected with our math. So it starts with the experience. Say, for example, in case if I go to a grocery store, there are some objects I need to purchase, I need to see, I need to view what kind of an objects that they are. If the mother says, okay, we're going to buy apples, and then she says, okay, try to look at the round apples. Or she says, try to look at the apples which are small in size. So we are always working on sizes, we're working on colors, we're working on how many that we have to take, or is it how many kgs? So everything relates to our experience from the real objects, from the environment that is around us. So eventually they become the abstract ideas. Okay, so for example, the children can begin with the ability to count. You can ask them, can you count the number of apples? Can we count the number of oranges? We begin with that. So you have still not introduced numbers to your child. How does your numbers look? But you began by introducing counting. The child was able to count. We all agree on that. Now, slowly, the child will use all these relationships. Say, for example, if the mother or the father says, let's sort all the green vegetables separate. Or let's, like if you have bought everything together, what do? We segregate. We put them into our refrigerator, right? As soon as we come back. So how do you sort? Is it based on the color or is it based upon the kind of object or the type of object? So do you mix your chilies, your broccoli, your beans? They're all green in color. So your sorting depends on what then? Type of
The
object.
object, ma'am.
Type of object. So that means we are still putting the children into conceptuals, which is contributing to a single entity. Correct? So that is how we work on evolving your mathematical conceptuals to children before they get started with the schooling also. Now, what do I put all these conceptuals as? Can I put them as pre-math conceptuals? Wherein I can talk about, oh, pumpkin is so heavy, tomato is so light. Correct? Now, this apple is big, but this cherry is small. I'm introducing the conceptuals of big and small. I can introduce the concept of heavy and light. I can introduce the concept of how far the shop was and how near the shop is. So should we go to that shop or should we go to this shop for purchases? We're teaching about the distance to the child. All of these are somewhere helping me to work on my mathematical concepts, and we put that as pre-mathematical conceptions. But when you're specifically telling about the shape, the teacher said you need to buy an orange which almost is very round or spherical in shape. So when I talk about shape, I contribute towards learning what? Now we go a little bit more deeper. We work on arithmetic. And then the mother says or the father says, let's buy 4 apples or 4 kgs of apples. We're linking with numbers and the relationship with that, the units, the SI units. So again, that is related to my arithmetic, right? And I also talk about putting them into boxes. Like 1 kg of a particular material or an object can fit into a small box. If I have 5 kg, I have to choose a bigger box. So anything that occupies and it is related to my space, is it again my arithmetic? It's arithmetic. And for example, everybody has a pattern. Where do you keep what? We all have a pattern. Onions will be here only, garlics is here only, my corianders is going to be here, my tomato is going to be there. We all have a pattern. We follow that pattern. That is again related to my arithmetic. So whatever that we work in our day-to-day life is somewhere related to my arithmetic. It is related to my geometry. We are also talking about shapes. And sometimes it is related to my statistics also. I can be a little bit more on my money, counting. We can also include calculus also. See, all those topics, we don't have to come to school to actually work with. But math was already there for a child. So that's the reason introducing the math conceptions is very, very easy for all our children. We agree on that? Agree? Strongly agree, both the thumbs ups. Okay, so we're going to be working on that. So later, if at all, if you see here, when they come to school, when they are growing up a little older, that is when you start associating your quantity to your numeration. You tell children, this is number 5, and I have to count 5 apples or 5 beets or 5 bananas. Right? Now, in case if I have more, I go with my decimal system. Now, if I have to work on my calculations, I work on my arithmetic computations, like wherein I work on addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. I can also give the children differences of what is a whole number, what is a positive number, what is about my fraction, right? So all those would be my developmental stages that I would do it not at the beginning, but when the child is around 5 years of age. So when they are like nearly to 4.5 to 5 years is where you would begin with decimal system. You will introduce them the concepts of addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. You will also introduce them to the concepts of, is it a whole number? Is it a positive number? Like all the arithmetic tables, the skip counts and all of those conceptions, only when they reach around 5 and 6. You can also slowly introduce fractions to your children. So all of that is present in our preschool Montessori lesson. And towards the side, if you see the image, these are some of the materials that children will be introduced to. Look at the material. They're so colorful. And when it is displayed in a very proper way, the children do get attracted to the numbers and the number system. And the child will be able to work on their intellectual development. Math is related to logic. Math is related to logic. So what is the skill that we are working over here? On the intelligence part of it. So it has to be a byproduct of developing the child's intellectual development. Right? So what happens? Most of the time, we are all human beings and we put in a lot of effort to understand everything, like where we live, the place, what is the population, what is the habitat, how did we exist, how many years we're going to be there in this particular place or that particular place. Every time we are trying to work on many factors which is related to my time and space. So children would also be able to work in the same way. And it is all related to my math. So what is important for us as teachers when we work with the younger children is we need to make sure that the child is able to identify the letter or the symbol. The child should be able to quantify. When I say quantify, they should know what is the quantity. When I say give me 6 beads, the child should be able to give me 6 beads. When I say give me 70, the child should be able to give me 70 of whatever that they have. If I say give me 100 rupees, the child should know about it. So they have to need to understand what is quantity. They have to have that skill. So identification, quantification is important. Next, the child will have to also understand that math is about the similarity. Are they same or are they different? What is similar? What is so different? At the same time, patterns is also important for me, and the sequence of number. They should know the number sequence, forward counting, backward counting. If the child goes wrong, they should know, yes, I have gone wrong here. I have to again work back on my control of error. Clear so far? Okay. So what do we do over here is like we have to establish and create our class, Montessori class environment in such a way that the child would also have a sensory exercise or a sensory experience. So math and my sensorial are little correlated to one another. Most of the pre-mathematical concepts to introduce, I will borrow my materials from the sensorial class. Like say, for example, if I have to teach about sizes, big and small, I can use my sensory pink tower. If I want to talk about, how is it long or short, maybe I can use red rods to introduce the lens. That can also be a possibility from my sensory lab itself. So I can work on that. So as a teacher, you should know clearly for what concept, what material you're going to be working with. Okay. So it has to be correlation with one another. Now, can I communicate to the child when I'm introducing the concepts? Definitely yes. Even a math teacher should have good spoken language. If you don't have the spoken language, it becomes very difficult for you to communicate to the child and express yourself. Right? Say, for example, in case if you're doing subtraction, I have 5 toys and I take away 2 toys. How many are remaining? 3 are remaining. So your talks has to be in such a way that the child will be able to understand it. So all these things are going to be developmentally appropriate. It is going to be age specific. We're going to see and we're going to introduce each of those materials depending on the maturity of the child's mind. And also, you have to make sure that the child is ready to work with that material. If the child is not ready, they're not sitting in one place, they don't have the sitting tolerance, probably you need to first work on that. Because math materials needs a lot of concentration. The child should have the ability to sit down, follow that cycle, complete the work cycle. If I start something, they should be able to complete. Like say, if I've given addition problem statement, the child should be able to complete the addition. So this is important for me to actually work on. The next important thing is about the precise movement. When I say precise movements, smaller movements, they should take it in smaller movements, and very little is what they would be getting introduced to the lessons also. Third, I can work on establishing a work habit. The child should know the work routine. I have to unroll a mat, I have to settle my mat down, then I walk quietly without running, without disturbing anybody. Then I pick up my material, I come back to my workplace, I settle down, and then I follow the instructions what was given to me to complete my work cycle. The child should know about all of that. Now, if the child has learned all these processes, they'll have the ability to concentrate. They would have learned to follow the process. It becomes by default that it is compulsion for all of them to follow this process. And the child used all the materials. They are learning about numbers, they're learning about the quantity. Now, just think about the maturity. The child has bought in so much of maturity. The child has become ready to work in such an environment. And that's how it becomes an exploring way wherein the child can explore learning the math. Okay, so we would restrict ourselves to only exploring arithmetic conceptions for our younger children, like say between 3 to 6 years of age. So we would not do a little complex mathematics for children. We will only stick to arithmetic. So what we do over here is like whenever there is a teacher or a director in the class, we direct them. These are the set of activities that you have to do. So say, for example, in case if it's children from 2 to 3.5 years, we tell them do only numbers from 1 to 10. Let them be very thorough. So you can use materials like red rods. You can use materials like, number rods and cards and counters, spindle boxes. Okay. These are simple exercises that you would begin forward. Once you're confident and the child is able to do all the work independently, that is when you go to the other work. So sequentially, what you can always do is like parallel work. Okay, when I say parallel work, it's the same number conception. One child has been given to trace, the other child can be using my cards and counters to find out whether the number is even or odd. Other child might be able to be working with spindles wherein they would be counting the numbers and putting the exact spindles over there. They might be understanding the conceptions of zeros over there, right? So unless and until they have the thorough understanding of 1 to 9, you will not introduce tens. So we would always begin with 1 to 9. Okay. So once 1 to 9 has been completed, then what do I do? Then what do I do? I would be able to work on my
Tens digit.
10 digits, right? So that is also there. So I should be able to work on my other 10 digits, tens. The numbers like, 1 to 10 is what I would again go on. Now, once I introduce all my tens, so again there, I have to be working. Yes, I have to be working wherein I would say here, let me give you that example. So, can you see my board being pinned? Yeah. So here is where we're going to again work on a couple of things. Like say first, I would go only from 1 to 9. Once I am confident that the child is able to do numbers from 1 to 9, I move towards teaching children the number system through tens. When I say tens, I will do 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 until 90. I don't go 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. You're able to get me? We don't do that way. We only go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 because it's easy for a child to understand. Then is where I would introduce further. So I go to decimal system. Now the focus over here when I introduce my decimal system is to work on how it functions. Now when I say decimal system, we talk about ones, we talk about tens, we talk about hundreds, and we talk about thousands. So this is my decimal system. Now here, the focus would be on the hierarchy of the decimal system, how the system is going to function. For example, I might perform simple operations like addition. I can perform subtraction, multiplication, and division. So all these will be considered in my computations or learning about operations in my math class. Now they are again classified into my arithmetic operations, right? So this would be one part of it. Now, what do I work in parallel with this is what I will have to be working on. So when I'm working parallelly with children, what do we give here for them? What do we give here for them is related to my other activities where I can do it parallelly. Now, when I talk about the parallel exercises, I can choose many things. Like say, whenever I want to count beyond 10, parallelly, what all can I choose? Maybe if you're an old student, you will understand that we might have materials like teens quantity, tens quantity. We can go with that.
Beads.
Stamp game, you can go
Yeah.
with beads, right? You
Beads.
can go with skip counts, linear skip counts. We can always be working on that. So parallel, you can also include a lot of other materials because you don't have to work only with this. No, because math is helping the child to work with the decimal system and helping them to work beyond that also. If there is an overlap, it's okay. Okay. So what should we do now? So we are responsible for creating the environment. We agree on that. We stick to it. We'll make our math classes very, very interesting to our children. And at the same time, we would be able to also look into the age appropriate activities. We can't do too many. I can't give them dynamic addition, dynamic subtraction to a younger child. When I'm giving addition, it has to be a simple static addition like 2 plus 2. I don't have to give them 39 plus 49 because 9 plus 9 is 18 and 18 will have 1 as a carry forward. So it's difficult for them to learn at the younger ages. Maybe once they're like 5 years, they understand the concepts of dynamic operations, which has a carry forward and which also has a borrowing conceptions. So as a teacher, it is very important for me to provide the indirect preparations of the experiences of the children also. So what does Montessori help you? Montessori gives you amazing materials like this. When you're using them rightly in your classes, not being negative about can the children learn 4-digit addition? That's the first question sometimes they ask me. Can they do a 4-digit addition, ma'am? Can they do a 5-digit multiplication? Can they do a 5-digit division? So when you ask that itself, sometimes what happens, it can turn out into a negative overtone. And the child might also find it difficult because when the teacher says that, the child will also experience the same way. So what do we do here as adults? We will not pass on such negative overtones to our children's experiences when they are performing arithmetic. Okay. Now, why? They need to be presented with great enthusiasm. You need to be very, very careful and clearly you have to set instructions to your children. Now, what would you do at that time? You present your work for the first time. Then you observe the child's work. You observe if the child is able to understand the concept or not. Only then you encourage, you interact, you interrupt, you provide repetition if the child is not understood, unless and until the child is now independent of doing all those exercises. And you have to make sure that the child is going to be mastering in all those exercises. Clear? So on this note, this is the introduction. So if at all, if you open your book also talks about the same thing in the introduction part, which talks from pre-writing skill, that how math is introduced right from the time that you are born, and how even we can introduce spoken language to communicate it very better. We have to be expressing the quantitative experiences also. So that is considered to be the language of mathematics. Okay. So when the child is like 6 years of age, like how we have it in phonics, the child should be able to read and write anything. When we talk about Montessori math, when your child is around 6 years, he should be able to perform all the simple operations of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Very, very basic operations, they should be able to do it. And what's going to help us? These are some of the materials, or I could say very few of the materials, which is going to be helping you to learn our math conceptions. Having said this, we're going to stop over here and we get into our first lesson. So please note down the first lesson for today is going to be number rods. Please everybody note down, we're going to work on the first material and that's called your number rods. Okay, so this is our first material. So you're making notes? Yeah. We're going to start with the first part of it. The first part of our Montessori math. This is our first material. It's called the number rods. So we're going to start with the first material. Okay. So let me describe this material itself. Sorry, I think it's wrong. Okay, so this is our first material. Now, what do you understand as soon as you see this material? What all can you relate and tell me?
Short and long.
Even and odd. Odd and even.
What, as soon as you get it, what did you see? Forget about even odd. What did you see here?
Alternate
Short
colors,
rows,
ma'am.
colors.
Alternate colors, ma'am.
Alternate colors. So that means pattern was followed. Red
Yes,
and
ma'am.
then blue, red and blue. There was a pattern. So
Yes.
did we cover up that in our introduction part? Math is also about pattern.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Second thing. One was colors.
One.
The length
Long
of
and short.
Length. They're growing. If you see here, math is all about the numbers and every number is growing. When it is in sequence, every number is one more than that. So we understand the sequence also. Like 2 is more than 1. 3 is 1 time more than 2. 4 is 1 time more than 3, right? So we understood that every number is growing. What else we understood? We also saw the symbols, like how those numbers look like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They've been printed there. And if you see here, that was the one which is in red and blue, they define quantity. Now, when the teacher asks you, what rod is this? If I've taken the third rod, if the teacher asks, can you count and tell me how many units or how many pieces are there? The child can go literally like 1, 2, 3. They touch on the red, they say 1. They touch on the blue, they say 2. They touch on the red again, they say 3. Right? So every unit, every partition is 1 unit. So we introduce sequential counting to the child here. Okay, everything is placed in sequence and the child is instructed to pick any rod. They can pick any rod. Randomly, you will teach them counting. So this is what we did before the child was in schooling, right? The parent randomly taught the children to count. So that means counting was introduced, not how the numbers look like. We went on counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? The count 5 times. Jumping also we do 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, when they're picking up some material, again, there was counting which was involved. So the first material is basically for our what I could say is like introductory counting. We use this as for counting numbers. We don't take in the first material cards. So you can skip the cards over there. Only consider that red and the blue colored rods. The first material is only rods, number rods. So now can you describe the material very nicely? Now can you describe the materials, number rods? So I can say red rods have 10 rods. I can say number rods have 10 rods.
Yes.
They are divided into red and blue sections. And my shortest rod is red.
Yes.
And the second one is twice as the first one. And it is printed in red and blue. And the third one is thrice as the first one. And it is painted in red, blue, and red. And I can continue the same. So similarly, I have all my rods which has been divided into red and blue alternatively. So this is how you describe this material. So this is a description to the material. The first part is always like, what is the material that you require to present this concept of basic counting to children? The first material that we use in our classes is number rods. And we have 10 rods in this way. Now, apart from this, I would also need one more material because I can't place all these rods just like that, right? So I would also use my floor mat or my sitting mat and working mat. I would also use my mat. So I would need two things. One is a material itself. The other thing is a mat. Now, what do I do? How do I instruct the children to start working with me is I will show the child how to carry these rods. They're long enough, okay? They're not that tiny. The shortest itself is this big. So you can imagine the 10th rod is literally long. You have to hold both your hands and you have to literally hold it this way and you have to walk. Shobha would have seen that, you know, it's a very long material that you would have it. Okay, so children, you have to teach children how to carry the number rods, how to place them correctly, how to assemble in sequence, right from 1 to 10. That is also a choice what the child will do. So what as a teacher you will first begin is, you will first teach through 3-period lesson. What is 3-period lesson? Pick any rod randomly, count and say this is number 3. Bring one more rod, compare. Can you show me where is 3? The child will have to count if they don't understand. What is my 3rd-period lesson? What rod is this? The child will count and he will give me the answer. So always remember, whatever could be my lesson, I have to carry out my 3-period lesson. So you have to make sure that the child is able to count the red rods properly. Count the rods properly. Only then you go to the next thing. Okay. Now, how do I present it? The first stage in my presentation is called my naming period. Okay. So my arrangement could be either horizontal like this or it could be vertical. Either ways, you will be able to see how the numbers are actually growing in size. Now, what is my first stage that I did here was like, I can randomly pick anything. So I have to talk about the first stage, which I call it as the naming stage or the counting stage. Randomly pick any rod, count them. So the child is going to put the finger on every unit. Now, can you see how long is that rod? It's not that tiny. It is literally long. So you can tell children about counting and they have to find the right number. Now we are still not introducing the number cards here. It's only counting. In the next lesson, we will use the same cards and then we will associate. So I'm going to be combining both these lessons in the same lesson today because we don't have to redo it again. The first lesson in your book and the third lesson is about the number rods. The third lesson talks about using number rods along with the cards what I have sent here, what I have put here. The first lesson is without the cards. It's only take any rod, randomly count it, and you're done for it. Okay. Second thing, if you see your stage B, if you go by stage B, if I ask you to put the rods in random order, 1 to 10, the child should be able to put?
Yeah.
So that is your second stage. Stage B, I can say identification by name. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The child will identify and they'll sequentially arrange everything and they would keep it. So that is going to be my second stage. Now, what is my stage C or third stage? Random quantity. Now, when I pick my random identification, what I can do, I can lay out the rods randomly on my mat. And as a teacher, I can ask the child to take any number rod.
1. Oh, okay.
Okay. So I can take any rod and I can ask the child to count in front of me and tell me what number rod it is. Okay. So this we will repeat it for many rods. So you will get that clarification. Yes, my child has understood the quantity of this particular rod. Okay. So that was one exercise. Then I can also identify, like, ask them to make any kind of activities with the children. So once you're thorough with that, I can ask them to arrange with anything. Now, if you see here, some of the images are with red rods. Red rods and number rods, they're in the same length. The one you can see there, it's completely red. One set is completely red. One set is blue and red. So blue and red are the ones with my number rods. But the ones which is with only red, here, can you see here? Here, only red rods here. That is my red rod. So I can have a combination of both. And I can ask my children to work with any kind of a pattern. So this is optional. This is not required. This is for optional for children. Now, when we go back, I don't want to do this material right away. Okay. I think we're going beyond. Okay. So this is one part of it. So this is your first exercise. Now, where can the child go wrong here? Where can the child go wrong here? What is my error of control?
Counting.
Counting, yes. My error of control can be counting itself. Or the child can skip anyone and they can move on. Right? So maybe they don't know the sequence. Sometimes the children know 1, 2, 5, 7, 9, 10. They go that way. They don't know the sequence itself. And very confidently they will say this. We had this experience after COVID. When the children joined back, so we were asking them to recite numbers because we wanted to do that oral assessment, whether they know numbers or not. So they were all, a few of the children in M2. Surprisingly, they are 4.5 years of age. And we asked them to do a counting. They were like 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. We did so many rhymes, but still that 15 days is over. Still, they are not able to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, they could not do that. So that is also an error of control because helping the child to memorize the sequence, that is also important. So this can also be an error of control, which you cannot ignore. Okay, so you have to be working. So I can also put purpose of my exercise is also to help the children to learn numbers from 1 to 10. I can also say my purpose of my exercise is also making sure I have taught them the quantity right from 1 to 10. That can also be my purpose. Now the second material that I'm going to be introducing. So this is my first one. Is everybody clear with this?
Yes.
So what did we introduce through number rods? Quantity.
Three. Quantity.
Quantity. Okay.
Three steps.
Now,
Sorry.
say you introduce the quantity. Say, just imagine now I have 5 beads or 5 buttons. So the child is so good in counting. So you did a lot of extra work and you ask them to work on it. Now then you ask them, okay, now give me 5 pencils. The child also gives you 5 pencils. Now the teacher says, okay, now draw 5 dots. The child also puts in 5 dots. So you're very sure about it. But if the teacher says, can you show me where is number 5 here? They might not be able to identify which is number 5. The second thing what we're going to be doing is like you have to help the child to learn about these symbols. We call numbers as symbols, right? So to introduce the symbols, I have to use my other material in my Montessori that is called my sandy numbers, or we can also call it as sandpaper numbers. So how many sandpaper numbers I will have? I would also have numbers from 1 to 10. Sandpaper numbers will be there with me, and I have to be introducing my students the sandpaper numbers to work with. Now, how do I do? What is the objective of doing that? Now, say for example, if this is my card, this is my sandpaper number, I have to take 2 of my fingers and I would gently trace on my number. What I will have to be working over here is the direction. How should a number be traced? Is it from top to bottom? Is it from bottom to top? I have to work on the direction. Sometimes the child might also write like this. This is wrong. The direction was going wrong way. Number 2, the child writes like this. They go from bottom. It looks the same. So directions are a little difficult for us to understand. See? And then they do a lot of things. So teaching them the right direction of how a number needs to be written, it's very important. So this gives them that sensory ability to work on the directions. You can also do air tracing. Can we all do the air tracing? How do we do the air tracing? Fingers up. You have to master doing it ulta. You don't do it the way that you do it. Uma ma'am, you have to master it ulta. Now say, suppose if I ask you to write number 2, you do ulta. So that for the child, it looks the way it needs to be done. So as a teacher, what would you master first? Writing everything in the reverse direction. So they understand about how a number needs to be written. So this is called air tracing. So they understand about air tracing part of it. So what's the next material that we use is our sandpaper letters. So let me quickly show you sandpaper letter. How does it look? So you're okay with the first one? You know the first one, right?
Ma'am,
Yes.
for red rods,
Huh.
we learned just now. Number
Red
rods.
rods, number
Number
rods, yes. Huh.
Is there any hard and fast rule for arranging the sequence from biggest to smallest?
See, it is not biggest to smallest.
Small.
Yes, always the what we say when it is on the arrangement part of it. It's a good question. So whenever we arrange, the smallest is always towards where the child is sitting.
Okay, ma'am.
Now, say the child is sitting here, he would first keep the first rod here.
Yes,
Then
ma'am.
he keeps the second rod here. He keeps the third rod here. So that means the
Yes.
bigger the number, it goes far away from him.
Okay.
The teacher would sit here, perpendicular.
Yes.
So if this is my working space, the child sits in front of the material. And the teacher can be sitting here, the teacher can be sitting opposite or here. Right? So the smallest number is always towards you.
Yes,
And then
ma'am.
you grow the number. Okay, so that's one way. Yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
So everybody can note this in the number rods and in the red rods also. The smallest one is always towards you. And then you grow in number 2, 3, 4, 5. The further they go away from you. Okay. Okay. Let's see that. How do we work on that? Okay. So I'm going to give you sandpaper numbers, right? Now this is our sandpaper numbers. So it has numbers So you can have your numbers being arranged. The child might trace on the number using their fingers. You can encourage them to trace using 3 fingers. It gives them the help of an idea of why it needs to be traced. So it helps them to work on the sensitivity part of it also. So what do we have? We have numbers from 0 to 9. So I am not keeping 0 here because I have still not introduced the concept of 0. Concept of 0 could be a little tricky for the younger ones. You all get that? So it's always up to your convenience. You want to do from 0 to 9 or you will introduce 0. But this material will have numbers from 0 to 9. So when you're writing about my sandpaper number, you will say it will have numbers from 0 to 9 cutouts only. Okay. Now, how is it mounted? It is mounted on a little cardboard. It's mounted on a cardboard and the cutouts or the numbers, whatever is printed is granular, or I could say it is sandpaper. So that's the reason it's little granular. So what would you do to a child? You will ask the child to come with you. You will show them how to bring the material. You would begin by sensitizing your fingers. You will take up any one of the number. You will trace multiple times. Like say you will trace multiple times. 4, 4, 4. When you're tracing, you will not talk. After tracing, you talk. And you repeat the same for your other numbers. And then you pass it on to the child. You say, you want to try it? Okay, so now tell me what's the purpose of this exercise? I've given you almost all the answers.
Memorization.
Memorization, recognition.
Of numbers.
Yes.
The
Smooth
number
and hard.
The number, okay. So how the number is
Icon.
formed, the formations or the directions of the number. Or it can be like, how does a number look like? Identification of the symbol itself.
Motor skills.
Motor skills. Yes, yes. Fine motor skills.
Eye contact.
Eye contact. So I think
Mm.
it's a skill towards teaching them to write also, right? So you can also put that into it. So this is there. And that's the purpose of our exercise. Now, where can I go wrong? What could be my control of error? Where should I control?
The child's knowledge itself.
child's fingertips should be
Fingertips, yes.
fingertips.
Now, what if the number is here and the child's finger is somewhere here? There's no point of tracing it, right? So they have to literally trace on the number. So the child's fingertip only is the error of control. So that means the sandpaper is going to guide me. We're getting that? That is helping me to work on the grip. That is helping me to work on the formation of that particular number. It's helping me on that. So that could be my control of error. The child is not putting their fingertips on the sandpaper number. So this is my second material. Now, what's my third material that I do? It's an extension to whatever I had. So I am going to use both of them. So I'm going to use my number rods. Along with the number rods, I would also use my cards. Now you tell me how many number rods we had? 1 to 10. So I should also similarly have cards which will represent that quantity. Right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So I should also have this tiny cards. I can't keep those sandpaper cards. Sandpapers, yes, I can keep it as a copy control or a reference if the child is unable to write. I'll keep that. Now, what do I do here with this number rods and cards is, the first thing, I will associate the child, I will associate them from the number to the symbol. Sorry. Yeah, there was a distraction. Yeah. So what do we do here? We work on association. And when I say association, associating the quantity to the symbol. I have taken the number 5 rod. I will tell this rod is 5. So what did I do? I did this association of number quantity to my number symbol. So quantity was matched. This is first thing that I'm going to be working. The second thing that I'm going to be working here is on my addition. So I would also work on simple addition. The third I will work is on the subtraction. So I would also perform simple subtraction also using the same material. Now let's see how can we work on this. Now to have all of that, we have to make a table. So everybody make a table, and you have to first make a table of what makes 9. What all can make 9s? So we will make a tabulation here. What can all make 9s? 8 plus 1, 7 plus 2, 6 plus 3, 5 plus
4.
4. Then
4 plus 5.
4 plus 5,
5.
3 plus 6,
3 plus 6.
2 plus
2
7,
plus 7.
1 plus 8. Right? So this makes my 9. Now like that, we will now continue the table. You should all continue your table. What makes my 8s? What makes my 7s? What makes my 6? What makes my 5, 4, 3, and 2? Okay, so you will finish this table. Okay, so you can consider this as your homework. Finish this table of all of this. So this has to be for the glimpse of addition. So whenever we use Montessori number rods and cards, we work for association of numbers to the cards. Second thing, we would perform simple addition. When we make simple addition as a preparatory exercise, the teacher should have the chart. The teacher should help them to make a chart. Now say we take this. So what should you do? How should you do? Now say for example, we are working on what makes a 9. So 8 plus 1. So what is the child expected to do? The child is expected to take a 8 rod and the 1 rod. They join them and then they say yes, they are equaling to 9. So the child was introduced to 8 plus 1 is equal to 9. So this is one simple concept that we are going to be helping the child to work on it. So it is for simple addition. So how do I begin this exercise is by randomly keeping all my materials on my table or on my mat. So I would have all my problem statements are ready, my cards are ready, and my number rods are ready. Now, what is my first problem statement I have to choose? Before introducing my problem statement, I will also introduce something very, very important that is related to my operators. Now, what are those operators? Operators are nothing but the signs. When you do addition, you have to use plus sign. And when you add something together, what is the answer that you get? To represent that, we have to use equal to. So you have to teach them the names of these also. Plus sign, equal to sign. You should also teach them the spellings of these also. Equal to. So what are these? These are my addends. The first number, the second numbers, these are called addends. And what is the answer that you get? We get the sum of it. So when I add two numbers, I get the sum. I get the sum. So you can say I have 8 chocolates and I had one more chocolate. So I can say I have 5 chocolates. I add one more chocolate to it. So how many are they together? So what's the sum? So you can also talk in this terms. So that is equivalent to my answer. So when we work on this, we work with the children on this particular conception. Okay, so let's do a simple addition using number rods and cards. So everything is ready. The number rods have been arranged. Now, can you see the smallest is towards you? The smallest rod, which Sonali asked me, it was towards me, correct? So this is 1 and 2. So they're doing basic counting, keeping it back. We don't put it over there. Now we are introducing operations to our children like plus and equal to. Now let's perform a simple operation, okay? So when we do that, say for example, if I have chosen the problem statement as what's 1 plus 2? What is my 1 plus 2? I count 1, 2, 3. So 3 is my answer. So can I go back to my number rods? Check which one is my 3. 1, 2, and 3. So what did I do here? A simple addition is what I did it. So this can be used using your number rods. Now how do I associate? See, so simple it is. First is always the quantity. Next is what you bring the symbols along with that. 1 plus 2 is equivalent to your 3. You got that? Yes, so that was my 3. So the child was able to understand about it. So you keep back your operations and you again arrange everything in sequence. So now you can also have the dice game. So this is to keep your class a little bit more engaging. You can choose your dice for the first number. So it's 1. So you can roll a dice. It's 4. So where is 4? Do a random counting. So this is your stage 1, wherein the child is still not mastered. Okay. Then is 3. So I take up my second number. As I mentioned, you can either arrange it horizontally or vertically. What's my answer? 7. So I have to find an equivalent 7 rod and I have to be putting it. So then you associate your number to it. So this is one of your simple exercise that you actually work with your number rods and cards. Clear, everyone? That's for your basic addition. So we have to make a table. You can do it sequentially or you can pick up random problem statements like this also. So this becomes our third material that we were actually working. Now this also helps you to work on something else. What is that? Subtraction. It also helps you to work on your simple subtraction also. Okay. So here, when we work on subtraction, a couple of things that we will have to be working. Just like how we had the glimpse of addition, we would also be able to make up subtraction. Now say for example, how do we begin? Subtraction, we should always help the child. The first number should always be bigger, right? So you should always give them that conceptual. The first number should be a big number, right? So what is the big number in our number rods from 1 to 10?
9.
9.
10, 10.
10.
10. So 10 was my longest. 10 was my biggest. So I would always start my child with the 10th one. Okay. Now, what I can say is, I have a 10 rods. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So if I have my 10th rod, then I ask the child, take away 5 from it. And then you slowly start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How many are remaining? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 are remaining. So what I can do, I have to take up that 5 rod. I have to keep it here and see whether it is matching. So I tell I have 10. What we should do, we should take away 5. When you say take away itself, write with minus symbol. So the child knows I have to remove it. I have to take away that. I have 8. Let's take away 4 from it. So keep it little towards this side. So 8, we understand, okay, it's the big number. And I have to take away 3 from it. And what is my answer? I write here. So we can also perform a glimpse of subtraction using your number, rods and cards. Okay, so has everybody completed that table? Has everybody completed the table? I'll see if I have that video to show you. Yes, guys?
Ma'am.
Yes, you have it? Okay. Completed, all of you? Okay, so let me show you a quick subtraction. Okay. So your number rods will also come in different sizes. So whenever you're working on addition and subtraction, since that material which we used it for the introduction is a little bigger, you can always purchase the smaller set. They come in very handy and it's easy for the children also to move it. So you can give a problem statement or randomly you can ask the child to count 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this was my 8. So I can say what makes my 8? 3 plus 5 makes my 8. So 3 plus 5 makes 8. Now what if I take away something from that? What did I take away here, guys?
5.
5. So I took away 5. So how much is remaining?
3.
3 is remaining. So 8 minus 5 is 3. So this is how you would introduce subtraction to children. Okay, so 8 minus 5 is equal to 3. So that's going to be your simple exercise. Next, what you can always do is like introducing with the symbols. Now I have 7. 7 minus 2 is what? 7 minus 2 is my 5.
5.
So I'm using 7 minus 2 is equal to my 5. So you would have the symbols also to represent your this thing. Once you're completed with this, you will return back your materials over here. So you are going to use your number rods and cards to perform 3 things. So if you go back to your book also, does everybody have the book except Shweta and Lakshmi? Most of you have your books. If you go back to your book also, can somebody tell me what's the page number rods and cards?
167, ma'am.
Okay, 167. Everybody see, yeah, everybody see there. You would have something related to what I could say is your materials required, right? So we have our materials required for number rods. So what is the material required? You need number rods. Number rods are from 1 to 10. Then you need a floor mat. Is everybody okay with that? So did you find what are the materials required? Now, if you come to the presentation, your presentation area will have how to arrange mats, where to sit, where the child can sit. It will give you the arrangement. Why? Because the child will have to be sitting closer to the smallest number and the numbers has to be arranged a little far. Now, why do you think that there are 2 mats? There are 2 yellow color mats. Can somebody see? There are 2 mats next to the directors if you see there. Yes, no? Can you all see? Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Why are there 2 mats? One for the rods, one for the cards. It is preparatory. So you should choose 2 mats. One for the rods, one for the cards. Then you will take out. If you come down on your stage A, you will randomly arrange all the cards. If you see that squares that has been put small squares, that is all the cards in one mat. Then the larger mat, you can also put your other rods. Guys, can you see?
Yes, ma'am.
I am not able to see, ma'am.
I'll share this. Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is your materials required. So we have the number rods and then we have cards from 1 to 10. Right? So how do we present in my stage A? If you see here in my stage A, I have couple of things. I have set of mats, multiple mats. How many mats I have? 3 mats I have. 1, 2 and 3. This mat, which is in purple color here. Can you see here that I'm moving? This purple small mat is for my cards. This one, the yellow color one, the one which is here, this is for randomly what you arrange. Mat, what you have down vertically, this is to arrange whatever you pick, whatever card you pick, you're going to arrange here. So this has to be your arrangement. For example, you put all your cards here. Your card will be 1, 2, randomly you put it. Now what you have to do, the teacher asked you to take up one card here. So you picked one rod here. Then you arrange that rod here. Now, are you able to see me? You arrange the rod, you went above to this mat, you picked up the corresponding, and then you put it over here. The next, you will choose one more rod from this horizontal. Then you count, you put it vertical, and then you pick up the card from here, and then you will put it. Got it? Why we have multiple mats? So you do that way. So that is your stage A. Now, what do I have in my stage B? Stage B is where I perform my addition. So this is what we did. When I'm doing my addition, if you come here, you have to teach children 9 plus 1 makes what? 8 plus 2 makes what? So we start our table from what makes a 10. We started from what makes a 9. You can start making from what makes a 5. The challenge here is like 5 plus 5 makes 10. Then what would you do? We have only one 5 in the number rods. Where will you bring the other 5? Think and tell me the answer tomorrow. Okay? So we're going to be working with what makes 9s, what makes 8s, what makes 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So what you should do, you have to make the table. That is what I asked everybody to make a table. Then the next presentation, you will do your subtraction. This is what we did in our subtraction also. Okay. Now, why do we do this? What is the purpose of our exercise of doing this? Because we could
introduce addition and subtraction.
Yes, we are preparing the child for addition, subtraction, right? And the child will also be good enough in counting. The child also now knows the numbers also. So we did 3 materials for today. And that's the beauty of today's 3 materials. To give you the overall summary of why we had to work on these materials, you all should be knowing why did we do that also. Correct? So now can somebody summarize why did we do these 3 materials in a very nice, beautiful Montessori language? Full sentences. Guys.
These materials will make a child learn better concepts about mathematical concepts. A child learns mathematical concepts,
Okay.
that thereby enhancing his fine motor skills also.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Correct.
Ma'am, you asked one question that what makes 5. For that, we can use one more red dots because it is also same length, no?
Yes. So she was absolutely correct. So when it is 5 plus 5, you have the equivalent length, material and sensorial. That's called red rods. So you'll go to red rods, find the equivalent length of the number 5 rod, and then you will bring. The same goes with in what makes an 8, 4 plus 4 makes an 8. What makes a 6, 3 plus 3 makes a 6. So in that cases also, you can use red rods. When you have same number addition, 2 plus 2, 3 plus 3, 4 plus 4, 5 plus 5, 6 plus 6, 7 plus 7, 8 plus 8, and 9 plus 9. Okay. So to overall, to summate in today's exercise, what would we use in our Montessori classes and our learning is, we used number rods, we used sandpaper letters, we used number rods and cards. Now, what is one thing that we always understood is it is a hands-on exercise. It is on a multi-sensory approach. It included different conceptual learning for me, wherein I introduced the concept of counting, I introduced the concept of identification of my numbers, and at the same time, I introduced the conceptuals of addition and subtraction. Correct? So these materials were designed by Dr. Maria Montessori to provide concrete experiences. Now, there are differences between concrete experience and an abstract experience. You have to be very, very specific about it. Okay, so they are helping you to provide these concrete experiences. It helps the child to understand the math conceptuals in much brief. Now, if at all, if I talk about the number rods, if at all, if you are not knowing about the conceptuals, we all know it. But in case for a layman, they kind of consider it's a wooden rod. And they might not be knowing we can use them to perform addition, subtraction. The child will be able to manipulate the rods. They will also be able to get the sense of length. They would be also able to get the sense of sequence order. They might not know. So as a teacher, you're helping the child to work on the sensorial experience also. See, whenever I ask you to summarize on the materials, you should be talking in these terms because now you are a Montessori teacher. Correct? So how would you speak about number rods? I can say number rods are a set of wooden rods which is varying in length from 1 to 10. Each of the rod is representing a different number quantity. Now, children use these rods in our classroom to visually see how the quantities are changing. They understand the concept of quantity and they also understand the relationship between the quantity and the number. This is related to my learning. But what about my hands-on? How about my sensory experience? When the child is manipulating the rods or when they are moving the rods in different stages, they are developing a sense of length. They are developing a sense of order. At the same time, the child is learning the sense of sequence. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So what did the rods give you? It provided you a tactile experience. You touched them, right? So it gave you the tactile experience and at the same time you were also visually seeing. So it gave you the visual experience also, which helped me to internalize my mathematical concepts. Clear all of you?
Yes.
Now to support my third exercise, number cards. So the children learned cards. So now you can go a little further and you can say they have been used in conceptual learning of addition and subtraction. Now, can you tell me like how can we define these materials or the usage of the sandpaper letter similar language? Again, it is tactile. Sandpaper letters. It is helping me to work on my tracing skills. It is helping my children to work on the fine motor development. Right? Because I'm being very tactile. Whenever I'm tracing on the sandpaper letters, I'm nurturing that little kid's fingertips. So indirectly, it is helping them to develop on their fine motor and the motor memory. We always call, that's the reason we ask children to write more, because it helps them to develop something called as motor memory, or we also call that as kinesthetic memory. Okay, so it helps them to understand how that number shape is given. What is the direction at which I trace? So this was related to my tactile learning. It was related to my kinesthetic learning. So anytime if I'm linking to my sensory education, my math, I have to be talking on these two aspects. Now, how do I integrate all my senses for this? I'm seeing the numbers, a sense of touch. I'm touching the number, so I'm seeing, so sense of sight. When the teacher says number 3, the child is listening, auditory sense. Correct? So when I touch the number and trace it, sense of touch. Since I'm tracing multiple times and I'm getting to understand the right direction, kinesthetic memory. So don't you think that I have integrated so many senses? See how beautifully you can explain it. So as a teacher, when you explain this to your parent and when you work on these small words, it is going to be the rightful way that you're going to tell the importance of these materials. So that's how we work on this. And today's class, we worked on the emphasis and we worked on exploring these 3 important materials, which is going to be the foundational skill for our children because they are learning numbers from 1 to 10. Now from here, it becomes easy. So if they know numbers from 1 to 10, other number constructions becomes easy, but the material might look a little complex. But a teacher who is managing children of 2 to 3 years, you have to make sure that they know numbers 1 to 10, identifying, counting, matching, sequencing, backward counting, missing number, is it big, is it small? They should know everything from 1 to 9 at least, if not 10. 1 to 9, the child should be knowing. After 9 is introduced, we introduce the concept of 0. And once the concept of 0 is introduced, we go back to our number 10. Okay, so that's it for today's session. Okay. On a quick note, what was your today's learning?
Yes. It was about 3 materials.
All 3 materials? Yes.
Rods, sandpaper,
Mhm.
and
So we know about it. What was something that you didn't know and you learnt about it? Kinesthetic. Introduction to kinetic memory, integration of senses into your materials itself, which is not there in your books, which I felt like I should talk about it also. Okay, so that was one thing which we learned. Yes. Anything else?
One more thing which was very interesting, ma'am, which I did not know. We can take red rods, the help of red rods, and we can integrate with number rods.
Okay, so that was introduced, that was told by Shweta. So I
Yes,
think,
ma'am.
Shweta, you rightly guessed that we can go with the other material, red rods, and we can find out through the lens. Okay, so yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. So that was some of our learnings for today. So thank you very much. So we've already exceeded a little time for today. And let's quickly take a attendance photograph on the count of 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening and wishing you advance Merry Christmas. We're going to meet again tomorrow, same time. Okay, so stay in touch, stay blessed.
What about dates, ma'am? Exam dates?
Dates I will forward it to you. Okay, so I'll send you the timetable today. Okay, so see you guys. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. And
Bye,
prepare
ma'am.
well. The other students who are appearing for the exam, please prepare well.